everybody, welcome to this new Cornerstone video. I'm Emilio and today I'm very happy to present you, after more than 2 years of development, the Cornerstone NUCLEO Reverb. This is a pedal that is made in collaboration with Paul Davids. It's actually his signature. It's inspired by one of his trips in a nuclear power station in Austria. So this pedal is inspired by that sound, that massive reverb sound that he had in that nuclear power station. I was very impressed by the sound, and since Paul and I already knew each other at the time, when I met him in an AM show, we discussed about the opportunity of making a signature pedal together, and he was down to do it. So we started the development, and as I said, that was more than 2 years ago. This is a very significant pedal for us. It's our very first digital pedal. Being able to make it a signature of Paul, it's even more important for us and significant. What I decided to do with this pedal is create not just a simple reverb, because there are a lot of other reverbs on the market, also because I kind of like to think outside the box and I like to create different pedals. So I put in this pedal different type of features that I've always searched for in a reverb pedal, but still in an easy to use device. So this is it, the NUCLEO. It's a really easy to use reverb. There is a lot of things happening under the hood. Today we're going to be doing a very deep dive into every single control of the pedal. Without any further ado, let's have a closer look to the pedal. So looking at the main face of the NUCLEO, we have 8 controls, one rocker switch here and 2 foot switches. Each of these 8 controls has 2 layers of function, 2 layers of controls. One is the primary function, and the second layer is a secondary function for each of the 8 controls. Then 2 foot switches is one for bypass or saving, and the other is freeze or navigating the presets. How can you change from primary function to secondary function? It's very easy. This rocker switch here, by default, it's always on the left. And if you put it on the left, it's controlling the primary function. If you put it in the middle, like this, you control the secondary function. How do you remember what is primary and what is secondary? That's very easy, because in the graphic, we displayed in orange here the primary function. So we have, as a primary control, we have decay, tone, freeze pitch. We're going to be looking at this a little bit later. Modulation, air, and flux. And then blend, different type of reverb. And as a secondary controls, we have these little white controls. So it's rate, pitch, speed, pre-delay, diffusion, and so on. So it's very easy to know what you are changing with every control, and even if you are using the primary function or the secondary function with this rocker switch. So it's very, very easy. Let me give you also a little bit of explanation of what are the different type of reverb algorithms that we have in the NUCLEO. 3 main reverb algorithms, which are room, hall, and reactor. Room and hall don't necessarily need a particular explanation, but the reactor is the biggest reverb that we have in the NUCLEO. It's explicitly inspired by the nuclear power station. It has a max decay time. As you can see here, this is a 3-position selector. You can choose as a primary function, you can choose the type of reverb you want, so room, reactor, or hall. And if you go with the rocker switch in the middle, you can even select the type of voicing that you want. There are normal, vintage, or lo-fi. The pedal will also help you figuring out visually what you are controlling, a primary or a secondary control. Because if you switch on the pedal like this, the NUCLEO logos stay the same all the time if you are in primary function, and if you are in secondary function, the logo start blinking slowly like this. Now I'm going to show you the control structure. So we have 8 controls, as we can see. The 2 big red knobs here controls the type of reverb algorithm you want, so room, reactor, or hall, and as a secondary control, the type of voicing, so normal, vintage, or lo-fi. The bottom one is controlling the blend, so you're blending the dry with the wet signal. There are other 3 plastic little knobs here. The first 2 here on the left and the center one, are controlling the basic parameters of the reverb, so decay, tone, and as a secondary control, pre-delay and diffusion. The third one, the one on the right, is actually related to the freeze function. So we have freeze pitch as first control and freeze volume as a secondary. We also have three faders right here that are just adding more flavors that are meant to give movement to the sound. Let's have a look now at the basic controls of the reverb. These are controls that are doing exactly the same thing throughout all the reverbs in the Nucleo. So this is actually a general explanation. The blend control goes from full dry all the way down to full wet. But the excursion of the blend is not linear. So you have the dry, which is actually present all the time up until 70% of rotation, and then from 70% rotation up to maximum you have the decay of the dry signal. You can actually have an increase of the wet volume up until 70% rotation, and from this point onwards you still have an increase of the wet signal and a fairly drastic decrease of the dry, so up until the maximum in which you have zero dry and it's 100% wet. Then we have the decay and tone, which are pretty self-explanatory for a reverb. The decay sets the maximum length of the reverb sound, and the tone is controlling the brightness of the reverb. And then we have the other two basic controls for the reverb, the decay and tone as a primary control, and the pre-delay and diffusion as a secondary control. So the input-output section of the Nucleo is fairly important as well. We have input here and output left and right. So we have input stereo that you can choose if you want input stereo or mono with an internal little switch that I'm going to be showing you with TRS. The output left here and the output right here. I think it's important to mention that the output right is isolated from the left. They don't share the same ground. So it's isolated with a transformer. That's why you can read here ISO. This is done to avoid ground loops, especially when running two amps in stereo. Not always, but it can happen that running two different amps in stereo, you encounter ground loops issues. So just using the Nucleo, you can actually fix this issue just by using the pedal. Then we have MIDI in and MIDI out, and a USB-C port here, which is used to connect the pedal to computer. Not only it's used to update the firmwares, but it's also used to record, because the Nucleo is also an audio interface. So whenever you connect the pedal to the computer sees the pedal as a 2-in, 2-out audio interface. 9V DC, classic center pin negative polarity. This is the input and output section of the pedal. Okay, so this is the input of the pedal, because there are some switches, as I said, also on the input. You need to remove the lead, and these are controls that you set and forget. This is the type of input. So if you are running a stereo in and stereo out rig, you need to switch this little switch here to the stereo mode. Otherwise, if you have a mono in, you simply go with mono input. And then we also have this little switch here on the bottom left. This switch is to let the pedal understand the type of stereo out that you want. So let's say you just want a classic true stereo left and right, then just leave it like this by factory preset. Otherwise, you can use a wet-dry configuration. Wet-dry configuration means that you will have a fully dry sound out of output left and a fully wet sound out of output right. It just depends how you want and how you like to play. This little switch here, polarity, is because when you're running in stereo, not only you have output left and right isolated with a transformer, but you can even flip the polarity of the output right. And this is done because you don't always know what happens within the preamp section of your amp. Maybe the phase is flipped and you don't know. So it's always handy to have a polarity switch so you can actually flip the phase of one of the two outputs to avoid phase cancellations. These are all controls that you normally set and forget. So you set them and you close the pedal again. So let's say, for example, you play the Nucleo for the very first time. This is a basic setting. All the faders at minimum, decay, tone, and freeze pitch all at noon, blend at noon, and I will start with room reverb. And it sounds like this. A very basic room reverb. If I put the blend all the way down, it's completely dry. If I put the reverb all the way up, it's only wet. And as I said, the dry starts to disappear at 70% rotation here. This is pretty handy as this type of blend control is pretty handy because you don't have a dry control that disappears instantly, but you have your dry, so you have your attack and you still have all your attack intact for almost all the rotation of the blend knob up until 70 rotation, and then up until 70% rotation, and then you have more wet kicking in. Let's have a look at decay. Now the decay is at noon. If I put the decay at maximum for a room reverb, it's pretty long. Decay minimum. So basically it's the room size. Now let's try a little bit some other reverb algorithms. For example, the hall. I can still keep the blend at 50%, decay at 50%, and decay at 50%. So the main thing with the Nucleo is you firstly need to set the basic reverb you like. The Nucleo comes with 3 saved presets. There are pulse, favorite, so you can actually navigate through the preset, and then we'll have a look at the preset later on, but you can actually test pulse favorite preset of the Nucleo. The biggest reverb, as I said at the beginning of the video, is the reactor. So we had a look at the room, the hall, and then this is the reactor. Now the decay is 70%. We can even push the decay even more and have a background pad. Very large decay. And as you can see, the decay is very natural. It doesn't bother you because it doesn't give you that kind of digital feeling, even though the decay is put at maximum. You see, it's very musical. You can actually play on top of it. It doesn't oscillate. Now, if I put the tone, let's say, all the way down in this condition, it sounds like this. Pretty dark pad underneath your playing. If it's too much, you can actually lower the blend, like this. This is actually a very mellow and warm pad underneath. If you want the pad to be a little bit brighter, you can increase the tone like this. So now we have just seen the basic control for the reverb. Let's jump now into the fader controls. As I said at the beginning of the video, the fader controls are meant to add extra flavors to the basic reverb sound. I want to show you in detail what they do. So we have three faders right here. The first one on the left is the modulation one. The one in the middle is called air, but it's actually the volume of the pitch shifting or shimmering kind of effect. And the third one is called flux. It's basically a sort of granular type of effect added to the reverb. Now let's look at the first one, the modulation one. So the primary control of the modulation fader, so the first control, the function one, that you can control if the rocker switch is all on the left, like now, is the modulation depth. And if you want to control the modulation rate, you simply put the switch in the middle. You will see that the LED, the logo is flashing slowly, so you're actually controlling the secondary parameters. And let's put the rate like halfway. Go back to function one, and this is the depth. So depth all the way down, you will not hear any modulation. And then while I play, I will raise the modulation. You will hear the difference. This is a type of chorus type of modulation because we are in normal mode. Let's say we want to go to vintage mode, vintage voicing or lo-fi voicing. In vintage mode, the modulation sounds more like this. It's a little bit more pronounced. In vintage mode, the whole sound is slightly warmer than normal, the normal voice. And the modulation is slightly more pronounced with a little bit of wow modulation, which is also going on. And in lo-fi, this effect is even more pronounced as well. Let's go to secondary mode. Let's change the voicing. Now we are in lo-fi. Let's go back to live mode, primary control. Depth at 0. Of course, the effect of the modulation is even more pronounced the more you raise the rate of the modulation. Now it was at noon, basically in the middle. If I put the rocker switch in the middle, I control the rate. It was like this. Let's raise the rate a little bit more. And let's put the depth like here. Sound at minimum. Sounds like this. So overall, a very, very musical type of modulation. It never goes into unusable wild territory, going with the pitch out of control, but definitely usable in pretty much every configuration that you can put the rate and the depth. Let's go back to normal voicing. By the way, I've just put the normal voicing here, but we're still in reactor mode. Let's talk a little bit about the second fader, the air, which is actually controlling the volume of the pitch shifting or the shimmering effect. When I say or, it's because with the secondary controls, if you go to rocker switch in the middle, if you put the fader all the way down, you only have the -1 octave. And if you put the fader all the way up, you only have the upper octave shimmering. All the combination in between, you have like a cross fader. So if you put it all, in the middle, you have both in the same amount. You can cross fade them just as you like. So let's say I just only want shimmering effect. So in secondary mode here, I go with the fader all the way up. Then I go back to live mode, all on the left, and I just control the volume. Just remember, the shimmering effect, it will be even more and more audible depending on the decay. If the decay is, the more the decay, the more audible it will be, the shimmering effect. Now let's put it like this. I put the fader all the way down. Now let's check the minus octave one. So I go to secondary mode and put the fader all the way down. Then I go back to live and I raise the volume one while I play. The cool thing about the minus octave one and the shimmering is that you can actually have a combination of the two. So if you go to secondary mode and let's say you put it in the middle, maybe giving a little bit more emphasis to the shimmering, so you put like this and you go back to live mode and you control the volume of this combination. This is just the basic reverb with only a little bit of flavor on the octave added with this control right here. Now let's put it all the way down and let's talk about the third one, the flux. As I said, this one is actually adding an effect of granular on top of the reverb and it sounds like this. Now the primary control manages the volume of the granular. The secondary mode controls the speed of the granular. So I go to secondary mode and I put like a very low speed. Let's see how it sounds with very low speed. And if I raise the speed, we have seen the single faders, but the cool thing is mixing their single effects and creating a whole cinematic soundscape, which is extremely cool, and I think this is actually the key of the whole pedal. We are now in REACTOR mode. I'm going to add a little bit of modulation, air, and flux while I play. I mean, the Nucleo is really meant to be not just a simple reverb, it's meant to be a real inspiration and soundscape generator that plays with you. When Paul and I were designing this pedal, we wanted not to just make a normal reverb. We wanted to make a source of inspiration pedal. I think this is really doing this. Now let's jump on another very important feature of this pedal, which is the freeze. A lot of reverb pedals have freeze, but many of them, when you engage the freeze and you play on top of it, you don't have any reverb because the freeze is designed to freeze the tail of the reverb. This is not working like that. And this means that if you actually freeze the sound and you play on top of it, you still have the reverb. One of the most interesting controls of the freeze is this one, the freeze pitch. If you leave the freeze pitch at noon, it basically just sounds like what you have freezed. But you can actually change the pitch, one octave up or one octave down. So let's say we can change the pitch one octave up. And this is nice, especially if you want to have like a drum pad underneath your playing. Or on the bottom. The cool thing is mixing the freeze with a reverb with some extra flavors on top. So modulation, air, and flux. Let's put it in the middle, back in the middle. And I'm gonna add some of them. So a little bit of modulation. A little bit of air. and a little bit of flux. So another very important feature about this pedal is when you put the rocker switch here all on the right. That is called preset mode. The preset mode is where you can actually save and recall up to 3 different presets directly on the pedal. Via MIDI, you can save and recall up to 128 other presets. Let's now see the type of preset that the pedal can equip it with. We go all on the right, and now we can see that we are in preset number 3. To navigate through the preset, we simply do like a long press with the right foot switch, like this. Okay? Remember that if you don't do a long press like this, but instead you do a short press, you will enable the freeze. So let's disable the freeze and navigate the preset. So remember, if you want to navigate the preset, you do a long press. So this is the first preset, which is saved by default. Pretty big, warm, without any flavors. The second preset sounds like this. So it's pretty similar, but with granular to it. And this is the third. So it's a pretty short reverb with a lot of a sub-octave. Of course, you can actually change whatever parameter you want. And let's say you like this type of reverb, this type of combination, but you maybe just want a little more decay, let's say. So you simply turn the decay. The very moment in which you change anything, that preset will start blinking slowly like this to indicate you that you have changed something. Now this is a room setting. If I want maybe a room with a long decay, like this. Okay, maybe you like this type of settings and you want to overwrite that preset. So what you do is long press the left foot switch. Now that preset starts blinking faster than before, and then you have to choose in which position you want to save this new setting. So you go fast with this one, you just select the position, and then you long press again the saving button. The little LED animation, and then you have saved the new preset. At any time, you can actually go back and forth from preset mode to live mode. So let's say you're not using preset mode, you're using a live mode. This was the live mode as we were using it earlier. Hey, I just want this type of reverb, very bright, modulation. and a little bit of air, like this. Okay, you are in live mode and you say, oh wow, this combination of setting is really cool. How can I save it? Because I'm not in preset mode. How can I actually save this one without moving from live to preset? This is very easy. You can simply long press the saving button. You just choose the position. Like, let's say you want to save this type of setting in preset number 1, and then you save it. And now, whenever you will go to preset mode, you will find this exact configuration. Okay guys, I know it's a pretty long video. If you followed me this far, I really thank you. I hope this helped you understand all the controls of the Nucleo. If you have any question, feel free to ask anything in the comments down below. I will always reply to anyone. And yeah, so thank you very much and see you soon.